Hey, my handsome ladies and gentlemen, this is Shmeaty. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you're new. Have you been struggling in the Open Great League this season? If you have, don't worry, so too have I. And I spent about a week in what I refer to as the 2000s, otherwise known as the 2000 ELO range, and I was going through it. But I built a Pokemon that I didn't have a whole lot of faith in because everyone's been talking about it, and that is non-Shadow Dusclops. We're going to take a look today at just how strong this Pokemon can be, and we've got a really big problem on lead number 1 as it's Drapion leading into Greninja. This, of course, is a Pokemon that kind of runs through my entire team, but I am going to go ahead and let a Hydra Cannon through, trying to call a Night Slash, and unfortunately, no Night Slash is to be. I'm going to get hit with a Hydra Cannon, does massive damage onto my Drapion, and I'm going to fire off a second Aqua Tail immediately at the Greninja, because they will actually have to shield this. As you can see, the Greninja's already at 50%, so if they don't shield it, they'll likely go down there. I'm now going to bring in the Dusclops. I threw a move, tapped on my Dusclops button, and didn't get zero turn switch, so that is amazing. I actually have to go down 2 shields for that reason. You love to see it. The game is absolutely incredible at all times, and they're actually able to make a catch, which again they may not have been able to do if I didn't get 1 turn bring in. They are going to be able to catch my Shadow Punch onto their Clodsire, but we do have super effective coverage for this Clodsire. And we are going to fire off an Ice Punch, which does next to no damage, but a lot of people use the fact that Dusclops doesn't do a whole lot of damage as an excuse not to run it, but because of its very quick pacing, I believe Shadow Punch is 3332, and Ice Punch is 4333, and that is insanely quick pacing. We are able to get a catch of the Clodsire move onto our Drapion. Drapion goes down, but we do have a Shadow Punch to get rid of that oppressive Greninja. And now, back in comes the Clodsire, only to be met with nearly back-to-back Ice Punches. Ice Punch going to be shielded by the Clodsire, and Clodsire is looking like Fraudsire right now because I've got another Ice Punch loaded for it. What is it going to do? Nearly gets taken out, and we are not quite able to save the Dusclops for a catch in the end game, so we are going to have to take the Sludge Bomb, get KO'd, but we do have Diggersby up a shield in the end game. They decide to let us get the farm, and it's an Annihilate in the back, and you may think this is a bad situation for me to be a part of, but it actually isn't. I'm going to go for this Scorching Sands, and since it's not in Shadow, 2 won't quite be enough to KO, but I am going to have to make a very risky call. No shield this move. It's a Rage Fist bait. A very risky gambit going for the Ghost type move up against the normal type, and it is going to come back to bite this opponent, as since we no shielded, we get the attack debuff as well, and I can easily put up a shield even if this is another Rage Fist. Annihilate's pacing is too slow. They're getting quick attack down. GG's to this trainer. Getting into the next game, it's going to be Drapion leading into Bombardier. Bombardier, probably the best place for our team to see it, as of course our Dusclops wants nothing to do with this Pokemon, but as well Bombardier's fast move pressure, which it's pretty heavily reliant on as its pacing is not the best, is resisted by Drapion, so we can just put up a shield here, and we're actually going to be able to make it to 3 Aqua Tails before they're able to make it to 2 moves, as they do fire off the Rock Tomb. We got the back-to-back Aqua Tails here, and the Bombardier, if they decide to shield once here, they'll have to shield twice because they're not yet at their second move. They do decide to let the Bombardier go. They bring in a Claydol, and here, realistically, I should have hard switched my Diggersby, or I should have pivoted into my Diggersby here when seeing the Claydol. I end up bringing in the hard answer, which is a much worse idea, but this still isn't the worst situation ever. I could have played this game better though, so I do want to highlight when I make a mistake. Realistically, I saw Claydol, I was like, let me get my Drapion out of there, and unfortunately, didn't end up the best for me. We are able to make a 3rd Ice Punch versus this Furret, and this is why Dusclops is as potent as it is although it doesn't do a lot of damage, it is a death by 1,000 paper cuts kind of Pokemon, and it actually allows you to burn the switch timer quite a bit because of its quick pacing, high bulk, and it's honestly not a liability as a lot of people might think that it is. Furret is going to send the Swift, but I'm just going to shield up the Swift. I have no problem with that whatsoever. They're going to land the Aqua Tail onto the Furret, and now in comes the Claydol. Claydol built up to what can only be a Rock Tomb here, meaning they may have Shadow Ball. I'm not entirely sure about this play. Going for the straight Rock Tomb here is not the play, but we are going to fire off our Scorching Sands, which is Rock Tomb, but with only a 30% chance to debuff the attack and ground type, as opposed to 100% chance to debuff the attack. The moves they have been making recently are just absolutely stupid. Nevertheless, I'm going to fire off another Scorching Sands at this Claydol, and Claydol is approaching another move. I'm going to fire off the Scorching Sands and look to make a catch onto my Drapion, and we successfully get the catch. If they decide to fully undercharge this, we're still going to get Mud Slap down before they can get close to getting another move. But they opt to full charge it, maybe thinking I had more energy than I did on my Drapion. Scorching Sands connects onto the Claydol, and that's GG. Getting into game number 3, it's Drapion leading into Skeledirge, and Skeledirge is getting looked at very menacingly by this team as it does not have a positive matchup in sight. We are going to see them safe switch into a Lapras after throwing one Incinerate, and now we're going to fire off the Crunch onto the Lapras, get the debuff, which is very nice for us. Don't try this at home, we're switching in the Dusclops, but this is a very special Dusclops. My Dusclops has a very high defense stat, which allows it to get a bulk point over the Lapras' Psy Wave, where the Lapras' Psy Wave will do 1 less damage than normal. That is a very impactful bulk point to have in this matchup, allowing me to easily switch in my Dusclops here, and now I'm looking to undercharge to get an extra Hex. They don't recognize that and allow me to Hex down that Lapras. In comes a Dunsparce in the back, and Dunsparce, if we thought Clodsire was a fraud, this Pokemon is an absolute fraud, and we are going to fire off a second Ice Punch at the Dunsparce, and now I think I'm pretty safe to just let my Dusclops go down here. I would much rather not let that happen, but I would need the alignment of my Diggersby on this Dunsparce, as I don't really want my Drapion into a Dunsparce up energy. They are going to fire off a move here. They're staying in this matchup because, of course, they do have the Crocodile on lead. I forgot the name of it. Skeledirge. There we go. Anyway, they are going to continue firing off Drill Run after Drill Run, but this is so cooked for the Dunsparce. If you guys are not familiar, in Season 20, this is a pretty common matchup, as Dunsparce was pretty common in Season 20 for those that are newer to PvP. This was a pretty common matchup as rollout was a lot better back in the day, but Dunsparce just is such a fraud. I'm going to get to connect with these Scorching Sands onto their shield. They do have another shield here, but this is just so over here. There's nothing the Skeledirge can do, and they're going to fire off our Torch Song, which is not enough to KO. I fire off one Quick Attack and the Scorching Sands, unsure if the debuffed Incinerate would be enough to KO. It was, so that ends up being a good play, and now I get one turn bring in once again, but it's not going to matter. Skeledirge is unfortunately not healthy enough to live a Crunch. Well, fortunately for me, unfortunately for my opponent, this Crunch lands onto the Skeledirge. GG's to this trainer. Getting into the next game, it's going to be Drapion leading into Jumpluff. Actually pretty ideal here. I'd much rather see the Jumpluff on my Pokemon that has the Ice type coverage, but I can live with it being here as well, as Drapion does have the super effective Poison Sting damage, which is not a negligible amount of damage onto the Jumpluff. It's a non-shadow one as well, so the Crunch gets the debuff, which is very nice for us. They are going to send the Acrobatics, and this is only an Aerial Ace, so my Drapion is going to no shield here. I don't have to respect the Aerial Ace. It does do a sizable amount. I throw 2 Poison Stings and react too late to the fact that a Marowak is switched in, so I do take 2 Mud Slaps, but I do have residual energy on my Drapion for later, and I get to bring in a pretty dominating matchup, Diggersby into the Shadow Alolan Marowak, or what should be a Shadow Alolan Marowak. It's actually a non-Shadow Alolan Marowak, which means these Bone Clubs and Mud Slap combinations are going to do next to no damage. This is definitely a Pokemon that prefers to be Shadow, as a lot of its play is predicated on the fact that you can Mud Slap through Pokemon or have a nice amount of charge move and fast move pressure, with Bone Club and Mud Slap being pretty good synergistically. Nevertheless, Scorching Sands onto a Shadow Tentacruel. That is a very spicy pick. In comes a Jumpluff. Jumpluff gonna get hit with a Fire Punch. They better shield it, and they do not. Back in comes the Tentacruel, but realistically, there's not a whole lot Tentacruel can do here. I actually think I'm going to shield up my Diggersby here. No, I'm going to let this go. It's an Acid Spray, and the Acid Spray does not allow them to Acid down. So now I get the Scorching Sands. They are forced to shield the Scorching Sands. And I'm going to show my Drapion, go for the crunch, and now I can just bring in Dusclops. There is no way for them to remove the Dusclops from the field from this point in the game. They are going to recognize that, allow me just to get the full hex down. They might have just put down their phone there, that's what it looked like to me. GG's to them nonetheless. Drapion leading into Shadow Cradily in the next game. Shadow Cradily is pretty interesting. I tried to run it, it was not very good. Nevertheless, they are on Bullet Seed, and I'm going to go for the crunch on 5. Not for any particular reason other than the fact that I don't want to throw a crunch after getting debuffed. So I am going to fire off one Poison Sting, attempt to catch off a Rock Tomb onto my Diggersby, and unfortunately, I am unsuccessful with that. They are going to fire off a Rock Tomb anyway after seeing that I brought in my Diggersby because they are a Cradily user, and Cradily users love one thing, and that is sending Rock Tombs at Pokemon, regardless of whether or not they are resisting the Rock Tomb or not. I am going to fire off the Scorching Sands onto the Cradily. Cradily is going to be forced to make a decision here. A Scorching Sand still does quite a bit of damage. I correctly shield up a Grass Knot and no-shield a Rock Tomb, and now I'm no-shielding again. I no-shield, it's a Grass Knot, but I'm able to hang on, and now I'm going to bank the Scorching Sands for later, bring back in the Drapion, realizing that I can throw 3 Poison Stings, win the CMP tie over the Cradily, and if Cradily wants to get a move off, they will have to drop their last shield. Cradily does just that, and I am going to no-shield this move. Comfortable with just taking the shield advantage. They are going to get the Rock Tomb to land onto my Drapion, but since they were debuffed by the Scorching Sands, I am going to be able to live it a lot more comfortably than I normally would. Crunch lands onto an incoming Emolga. Emolga is unfortunately going to be able to get a farm down. I do have my Diggersby, and here I'm very low, but I kind of want this Emolga off my screen, so I'm going to go for the Thunder Punch, and Thunder Punch... Fire Punch onto the Emolga, of course will pick up the knockout, as Emolga is very glassy. They're probably going to give this Pokemon Parabolic Charge next, and just ruin my life even further. Nevertheless, I bring in my Dusclops. Dusclops is going to be able to fire off the Shadow Punch at the incoming G-Sola. G-Sola here getting quite low after just one singular Shadow Punch, and they're going to be able to retaliate with a Nightshade. It's super effective, but it's not going to be enough damage to get rid of my Dusclops. They attempt to switch and catch onto their Cradily, but that just allows me to double up on the Shadow Punches. They needed that catch in order to win the game, so I recognize that, don't throw the move, and now I have my Shadow Punch. I am in range of this Astonish, and this Shadow Punch will come just short of KOing, and 2 quick attacks and the Fire Punch will dispatch this G-Sola. GG's to this trainer. This game was a lot closer than I had anticipated. They might have closed their app realizing that that second Astonish probably would have KO'd, but since we threw 2 quick attacks, it wasn't going to register. This is a very problematic lead as it's Drapion into Shadow Annihilate. I have one answer to this Pokemon on the team, and it is going to be the Dusclops. I am going to have to stay in and play it out with my Drapion, which is a sign that I'm pretty weak to this Pokemon, so they are going to shield up, and I do get the Aqua Tail bait successfully. They're going to fire off a move here. I need this to be a Rage Fist, to be honest with you, so I just decide to no-shield a Rage Fist, and I get my Crunch. Unfortunately, it's going to land onto a Gastrodon as opposed to the Annihilate, which was much more problematic. I am just going to fully throw in my Diggersby here, because why would I want it ever aligned onto that still relatively healthy Annihilate when I can put it in this matchup where it's pretty decent. And my play here is looking to leave this matchup with energy so I can threaten the Shadow Annihilate when it decides to come back in. I throw the Scorching Sands at the Gastrodon, it goes down, and now back in comes the Annihilate. Annihilate's still, as I said, relatively healthy here, but I have a shield advantage and a Fire Punch bait to land onto the Annihilate. Unfortunately, that was a very bad bait because if I sended, they were going to die there. I was up a shield, I had no reason to bait there, bringing in the Dusclops, and now they waited the turn, and that allows me to switch into my Drapion and catch the Rage Fist. A lot of lag happening here, but they have the perfect Pokemon for me to see in the back, and it is going to be the Skeleturge. Skeleturge is going to be hit with a Shadow Punch here momentarily. Skeleturge taking so much damage from the Shadow Punch, and they are going to be able to fire off a move here, but I have no problem with just throwing 3 more Hexes here and 1 further Shadow Punch if the 3rd Hex doesn't KO, but the 3rd Hex KOs. I'm doubled up on moves here. Annihilate just top lefts. GG's. In the next game, Drapion leading into Fortress. This isn't really that comfortable. I have 2 better responses, so you're going to see me safe switch into my Dusclops, and they respond with their own Shadow Drapion, but I'm able to strike first with my Ice Punch. And Ice Punch, again, death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's going to do some damage onto the Drapion, not a lot, and they are going to fire off a move here. Of course I'm going to no-shield. The Crunch gets no-shielded, does still do quite a bit of damage onto the dusclops, but I'm able to fire off another ice punch, and this is going to get them pretty decently low. And now they have to throw energy onto my dusclops. As dusclops is so bulky, I'm not getting poison stung down from this range. I'm going to let this move go. It's an Aqua Tail, and now I'm bringing in my own Drapion to get ahead on energy. I am going to shield up this move as I want to preserve health on my Drapion, as I feel like their third may be weak to Drapion, and they do decide to hard pivot into their fortress, which just means that I'm going to be able to bring in Diggersby, and Diggersby's got these super effective fire punches locked and loaded for this fortress. Does more than 50% onto the fortress. Fortress is very bulky, so that's actually not that bad. They're going to fire off a move here. I have no problem with no shielding whatever it is. It's an earthquake that does about 10%. Yeah, that's the fortress problem. It doesn't do any damage. I am going to overfarm as much as I believe I can and fire off another fire punch so that I can hopefully pick up a knockout on the fortress. They decide to invest no resources into it, which is good for me. And in the back, it's going to be a Jellicent. Jellicent is now going to have to deal with a lot of energy on this Diggersby, and it's not a negligible amount of energy either, as you're going to see. I'm going to throw 4 more quick attacks and another Scorching Sands, and this Jellicent is overfarming to the maximum, which is actually going to end up playing to their detriment because they have to throw energy here anyway. They should have tried to get rid of this Diggersby earlier, but now I have no incentive to shield this move because they are doubled up. But now I can just bring in my Drapion here, and I'm very comfortable in the fact that I can no-shield one Surf and save a shield for another Surf later on. I'm watching to make sure these Hex animations are coming through. I'm able to get an Aqua Tail onto the Jellicent here. I'm still watching very closely, making sure these Hexes are coming through, because if I decide to throw a move without a Hex coming through and they get a catch here, they win the game. I decide to undertap the Aqua Tail to be a little unpredictable here, and it does pay off. They are going to decide to throw one further Hex, and because I throw a Poison Sting, a little bit of unpredictability does go my way. Aqua Tail will pick up the knockout. They bring in their own Drapion to only get farmed down. GG's. Wholly uncomfortable Pokemon for my team to see. It's going to be a Shadow Scizor. Or it's not a Shadow Scizor, that would be so much worse. It's a regular Scizor for some reason. Regular Scizor going to be tasked with tanking a potential Crunch here. I'm throwing the Aqua Tail immediately, as I don't think they'll go for the Night Slash immediately. And they don't. They're going to fire off a move here. I'm going to no-shield whatever this is because Drapion resists all this energy. I'm not in a range where they can KO me with a Night Slash or a Trailblaze. If it was an X-Scissor there, I might have actually gotten KO'd, but none of them are running that move because they all like the big juicy boost. Fortunately for me, no juicy boost, but unfortunately for me, I get one turn bring in and miss out on an entire Hex. I'm gonna have to shield this Night Slash one way or the other. I just really have to hope they don't make another, and they do not. But them staying in there to get Hex down is pretty telling, meaning that their third Pokemon probably does not want to see the Dusclops in the back. So they are going to bring in their Galarian Moltres, getting that aligned onto the Ghost Man, whatever his name is, Dusclops, is pretty advantageous for them, but they're not switching out of Diggersby into Galarian Moltres. After me tanking the Fly, they are now finally going to switch and show us that they can make the catch onto their Clodsire. That Fire Punch catch is a little unfortunate for me, but I'm going to be able to land this Fire Punch onto this Clodsire, and now I'm able to build up to the Scorching Sands and land that as well. They're going to be able to retaliate with a move of their own, but I'm just going to no-shield here, comfortable in the fact that whether or not they decide to full send here, sometimes the opponents like to throw the little move at the Pokemon that is still very much not in little move range. That happens pretty substantially frequently, but nevertheless, they are going to no-shield their Clodsire. And now the most devious bait of the video, the Shadow Punch onto the Galarian Moltres. What a ballsy bait. I am going to shield up whatever move this is. If it's a Brave Bird, it'll KO. I think I could live a Fly from that range, but not particularly well. They shielded up the Ghost Punch, but now the Ice Punch is going to KO the Gmold. GG's to this trainer. Alright, getting into the next game, Drapion leading into Drifblim, actually a decent lead, and Drifblim probably going to switch out immediately, and they do switch out immediately. It's going to be the Marowak in the back, which is not particularly bad for us. They're going to fire off a Bone Club onto my Diggersby. This is a pretty cursed matchup for the Marowak, as they're not able to two-shield degen through my Diggersby as they would like to in most other matchups. They are going to no-shield the Scorching Sands, as it is not going to be enough to KO. They are going to retaliate with a Bone Club. I'm in the red health here, but as you can see, I can go straight for the Scorching Sands once again, and if they decide to no-shield here, they are going to get KO'd. What is the decision from the Marowak? They look to preserve switch advantage by putting up a shield. They are now debuffed, so you're going to see me, oh, whoops, it looks like I swiped up for some reason. I don't know what that was. Just ignore that. Anyway, they're going to fire off a Bone Club onto my Dusclops? Why do I keep forgetting this Pokemon's name? Nevertheless, Dusclops is going to fire off a Shadow Punch onto the Drifloon, and now that does a massive amount of damage, but they know that the Drifloon is not worth preserving at this point in time. But I'm going to fire off an Aqua Tail here to throw a move just before they're able to make a move of their own, and that's very important. Because if they got that Icy Wind there, that would have been a lot less comfortable of the game. But I'm able to Poison Sting down the Marowak as it was very, very low. And the third Pokemon is not what I was expecting. A blast from last video. Degene is back. Degene is going to be able to fire off a Parabolic Charge here momentarily. So before they get the chance, I'm going to fire off my Aqua Tail. They're going to shield it up. That's very nice for me. They're going to fire off the Parabolic Charge to pick up the knockout, but my Dusclops is in a health range where they're just not going to be able to deal with it. I'm going to be able to make a Shadow Punch here, and although they're going to be 2 stages boosted, my Shadow Punch plus the Hexes or double Shadow Punch will just be enough to KO. They need a Play Rough from this range to get rid of my Dusclops, and they have to commit to it because the Parabolic Charge just isn't going to be enough to KO. They don't even make it. GG's to this trainer. We've now made it to the final game of the video, leading Shadow Drapion into Clodsire. One of my favorite things about this team is that Clodsire has kind of got nowhere to run. If ever there were a team that screams Fraudsire, it would probably be this one, and the best play for the Fraudsire is for it to be aligned onto my Drapion. So I'm going to bank a bunch of Drapion energy for later, switch out into my Dusclops, and now I'm going to be able to be met with the Shadow Feraligatr, but Shadow Feraligator's massively behind on energy here. If they don't throw after 1 here, they are going to have to put up a shield as a second Shadow Punch is reached. Shadow Punch would potentiate a knockout from this range. I think they might live on 1 HP, and now they're looking for the farm down, unable to get it, but I'm just going to take my shield advantage here. I'm very comfortable with the work that my Dusclops was able to put in there. Although it wasn't the most, I was able to get a shield advantage, and my Drapion has about 250 billion loaded energy, so may as well just bring it back in as they go for the Hydra Cannon, looking to overfarm as much as I can, go for an Aqua Tail onto the Feraligatr to pick up the knockout from this range. And now, if they decide to bring back in that Fraudsire, it's in trouble, as we have the double Aqua Tail. Aqua Tail, I believe, is a 3-shot onto the Clodsire here, but we are going to build up another massive amount of energy, bringing in the Diggersby, and if this is an Earthquake, I still don't care. Diggersby can eat it, no problem, does about 30%. In comes a Primeape in the back, and this is actually kind of problematic. I have some calls to make here, and I'm no-shielding whatever this is. It's going to be the Rage Fist, because, now I'm unsure if they're on Ice Punch or Close Combat, but Ice Punch wouldn't KO from the range that I was at. And if they decide to send a Close Combat there, they have no shields remaining, and my Drapion would be able to make a move that would easily KO the Primeape. That is still Switch Lock. They're going to throw another Rage Fist there. I don't know why, maybe thinking they were in range of getting the KO there, but they just weren't, and we get the attack debuff. I'm shielding whatever this is, because this Primeape move is going to do more damage than whatever it is the Clodsire is going to be able to make, which is going to be nothing because we have the back-to-back Aqua Tails, and the Claude did not leave with a move. So, Aqua Tail number 2, the opponent realizes I just got too much energy on the Drapion. That is a top leftable offense since they didn't leave with the move. And here, I'm just going to brag a little bit. We get the 5-0 set here. If you made it to this point of the video, thanks so much for watching. I had a ton of fun running this team and also a ton of success. In the 3 sets I played with it on the day that I recorded this video, I went 4-1, 4-1, 5-0. And I did play the team for 1 set earlier in the day today, and I'm going to attempt to finish my sets as it is now 10 o'clock at night as I record this audio, but I did have another 4-1 set earlier today, so a lot of fun and had some pretty solid results. So if you guys want to test out a team and you've been struggling in the Open Great League as much as I have, I certainly would recommend this one. With all that being said, thanks once again so much for watching. I've been Shmeaty. We're on the road to 1K. I hope to see you all again next time, and have a good rest of your day. See ya.